Hello everyone, in this tutorial we're going to be learning how to make this simple shirt under a few minutes. Okay, so I already have my fabric folded into two, and I have my tape rule, my scissors, my ruler, and I'm going to be doing my markings on the wrong part of my fabric. So it's already folded into two. So on this front part, I'm going to be taking about 2 inches measurements, and that's going to serve as the button area for the front part of the shirt. So I will take away 2 inches measurements from up to down. So just watch what I'm doing, and I'm going to be connecting those lines together to form a straight line all the way down. Then I'm going to fold in that 2 inches. I'm going to be folding it in at exactly that point where I marked the 2 inches. I'll fold it in, and I'm pinning it down all the way to the end of the fabric, just as you can see me do now. So when I was done pinning it down, this was what it looks like. So I'll turn it to the other side and start taking my measurements. But the first thing that I'm going to do is to mark like a starting point from the top of my fabric, and from there I'll take my measurements. So I'm going to first take my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on that line. So that will serve as our shoulder line. My shoulder measurement divided by 2 is 8. Then I'll come down from that line to 10 inches, which is my bust line. So I'm just drawing an horizontal line across. Then from that shoulder line still, I'll come down to my waistline, which is at 16 inches, and I'm going to draw a straight horizontal line also. Then from the shoulder line down to the top length. So my top length for this shirt is it's 28 inches, and I'm going to add 2 more inches for folding, so everything will be at 30 inches. So I'm just connecting those lines together. So as you can see, I've taken all my horizontal measurements, and I'm just going to be labeling my lines now. So that's my bust line, that's my waistline at 16 inches, and that's the top length over there at the down parts. So I'm going to be coming up by 2 inches from my bust line, and that will serve as my chest line. This new line I'm drawing here will serve as my chest line. So I'm just going to label it chest line. I'm sorry the chalk is not showing. So on that chest line, I'm going to take that 8 inches that I took earlier on the shoulder line, and I will connect those two lines together. So after I was done, I went to the neck depth and the neck width. I used 3 by 3, which is the normal neck width and depth, and I'm coming down from that other line by 1 inch to create my shoulder slope. So I'm just creating a shoulder slope over there. So when I was done, I'm going to take the measurement I have between that shoulder slope and the chest line. I'll mark the midpoint, and I'm going to be using that to create my armhole. So on the chest line, I'm taking my bust measurement divided by 4. I'll place it there, and from the slope to that midpoint and to the bust measurement, I'm going to connect it to get my armhole. So this is just the basic thing we do every time when we want to draft a basic bodice. So I'm taking my waist measurement divided by 4 too, and also on the top length, I'm taking my hips measurement divided by 4. Now I'm going to connect those lines together, but before I do that, I'll add about 1.5 inch seam allowance on all these lines: my bust line, which is at the chest, and the waistline, and also at the top length. So I'll connect those 3 points together as seen. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut out all my lines. So don't forget to add allowances since you are doing this directly on your fabric. If you are doing it on your pattern paper, you might not add allowances and add it later on your fabric. But since I'm doing this directly on the fabric, it's important to remember to add allowances. So if you check your shirts very well, you realize that there is always a come down from the back to the front. So on this front pattern now, I'm going to be taking off 1 inch from the shoulder. So I'll take off this 1 inch from the shoulder, and on the back shoulder we're going to be replacing it. So just pay attention as we go ahead in this tutorial. So I'm going to be removing my pins, and this is what the front is looking like. I'm going to slash this front open. Remember that it's a shirt and we are going to be having buttons in front, so there's no zipper allowance at the back. So this is what the front part of our shirts looks like. So it's time to work on the back. Now on the back, I'm just going to be repeating all the measurements I did in front, but I'm going to be taking about 1.5 inch from the upper part. It's going to help us to replace the 1 inch that we took from the front. Just watch. So from that line, which is going to be the shoulder line of my back, I'm taking my bust point measurement at 10 inches, and from that line again I'll take my waistline measurement at 16 inches, just the way I did it in the front. I'm just repeating everything I did in the front here now. And I'll take my shirt length to at 28 inches and add 2 more inches, which is at 30 inches. So my 30 inches is just like at the end of this fabric. So I'm coming up again to get my shoulder line. I'm coming up from the bust line by 2 inches, and that is my chest line. So I'm just labeling my lines, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and take my shoulder measurement divided by 2 rather, which is 8 inches. I'm going to place it on both the shoulder line and the chest line and connect the both together. I'm going to be taking my neck width at 3 inches, but the depth is going to be at just 1 inches, and I'll connect them together with my free hand. So I'll take my shoulder slope to at 1 inches and connect it to that neck line area. So I'm taking the measurement in between my shoulder and my chest line, and also placing my bust measurements divided by 4 on my chest line, and I'm just connecting my armhole. So you see that there's a slight difference between the armhole of the front and the back. So I placed my my waist measurement divided by 4 on my waistline, and also my hip measurement divided by 4 on my top length, and I added 1.5 inch seam allowance all around, and I connected them together. So now on this shoulder line, on this shoulder slope of the back, we are going to be replacing the 1 inch that we took from the front. We are going to be replacing it on the shoulder of the back now. So from your shoulder slope, you take 1 inch measurement and connect it together. I hope you understand. If you don't get what I'm saying, just watch what I'm doing. So I just came up from the shoulder slope by 1 inch, and I'm placing the shoulder come down that we took in front to the back now. So when we are joining this together, you understand better. So I'll go ahead and cut it out now. So you see that when I'm cutting on the new line that we replaced. So go ahead and cut everything all the way around. So this is our back pattern now. This is the back part of the shirts. Now I'm just placing the front and the back together. You see that when I place the shoulder area together and I open it up, they don't match at the shoulder. So when we are joining this together, we are going to be complementing the back with the front when we join it. So I just want to give my shirt a little bit of shape on the sides. I don't want it to be just straight, so I'm going to be curving that side a little bit. So I'm coming up by about 6 inches on this curved side, and I'll come out of the down part by about 4 inches, and I'll just connect it together in a curvy manner like this. So I'll just use my scissors to trace that part out. Yeah, so this is how I want the edge of my shirts to be. So remember, we are folding it by about 2 inches at the end. So now it's time to start sewing. This is the front part of my shirts, and I'm just going to be folding it by about half an inch first, then fold it again by 1.5 inch. Remember, we used 2 inches allowance for the button side. So I'm going to be using my iron to make this easier for me, because the material I'm using here is Kampala and it can be really stubborn. So I'm just folding it with about half an inch first, then I'll take measurements of about 1.5 inch and iron it down again also. So when I was done, this was what it looked like. So I'll go ahead and sew on those edges. So when I was done sewing straight, can you see this was what it was looking like in the front? So this is how the front pattern is already forming together. Then I'm going to be placing the back on it. Can you see that that armhole area is not rhyming? That's because of the come down effect. So I'll go ahead and sew the shoulders together. When I was done sewing the shoulders together, this was what it looked like. So because of the come down, this is not matching together, and I'm just going to turn it to the other side so that you can understand. So you see that when we matched it up at the armhole area, we have this come down effect that the back is falling to the front. Yeah, so that's how the shoulder of your shirt is supposed to look like. If you check most of your shirt at home, you realize that that's how it looks like. So when the come down effect is done, you see that it's matched at the ending. Now the next thing is to go ahead and sew the sides of these together. So just go ahead and place them right sides facing each other again and sew them with that allowance that you added while cutting. So I'll just sew the both sides together, and I'm making sure I end it at that curved area. Yeah, so at that about 6 inches that I took earlier to curve it, that's where I will end my sewing. So if you look at the sewing that I did very well, you realize that I ended it at that curvy area. And the next thing I'm just going to do is to go ahead and stitch down that curvy effect area. So I'm just arranging my shirts for you to see right now, and I'm just going to take that area that is opened, fold it once, fold it the second time, and just give it a stop stitch on my sewing machine all around, and I'll do the same thing to the second side. So when I was done, this was what it looked like. I made sure it was very neat and no rough edges. So I'll go ahead then fold the down part of my shirts, just like you can see, just the normal way we do it. So I folded it with that 2 inches allowance that I added at the end of the shirt. So can you see that our shirt is already coming out really nice? Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to be doing now is to work on the collar of the shirt. So I'm going to be taking my tape rule and I'll measure around my neck area. I'll measure everything round. So just follow, just make sure you measure it accurately, and I have about 17 inches. I'm going to take the measurement again just to be sure. So I have 17 inches here. So I'm taking another fabric, I'll fold it into like this. Make sure I have the width of about 3.5 inches thereabouts, and I'll fold it again into two. Just watch what I'm doing. So when I folded it like this, I made sure I have 3.5 inches So can you see? Then I'm going to be dividing that 17 inches into two. So I'm just folding my tape rule to divide it into two, and the measurement I have is about 8.5 inches. So that 8.5 inches, I'm going to be placing it on these opened parts of my folded fabric, and I added 1 more inch to it to make it 9.5. And on the one that is not opened here, I'm going to just add few inches to that, maybe like 2 or 1.5 inch. So I'm going to be connecting it in a slanty manner. Can you see? So I connected it in a slanting manner, and I'll go ahead to use my scissors to cut that out to give me the shape of my collar. So this is how my collar is looking like, just something simple. So when I opened it up, this was what it looks like. Now on the wrong side of this collar, I'm going to be ironing my gum stay. So this gum stay is a little bit strong. I think it's the medium texture. I'll just go ahead and iron it all around my collar just to give it strength. So I'm just tracing out my stay, making sure I have this whole piece. And on the sides, I'm just going to be folding it by about 1/2 inch and use my iron to secure this down for ease while I'm sewing it. So I'm just folding it down with my iron, as you can see. I'll do the same thing on the other side of the collar also. This is just to make sure when I'm sewing it's easy. So when I was done, I folded the whole collar into two and also secure it down with the iron. Ironing is very important when you are sewing, guys. Okay, so I'm just opening them up and folding them right sides facing each other like this, and I'll sew them on each side. So when I was done sewing it on each side, I'm just tracing off the excesses, and I'm going to make sure that what I have in between this open part of the collar is 17 inches, and I'll turn it to the right side. So when I'm turning it to the right side, I'll make sure that the edges are sharp, and I'm going to be using my scissors to make sure the edges are sharp. So now it's time to fix the collar on the shirts. So on this shirt neck, I'm going to be starting from the wrong side. I'll place my collar on it. I'm going to make sure that edge is matching the beginning of my neckline, and I'll place my collar on it. I'm going to be using my pins to secure this down, just so you see it very well. So I'll secure it down all the way around. I'm starting from the wrong side of the shirts. Note that. Okay, so I'm going to secure it down all the way around, and I'll sew it down. So when I was done sewing it, this was what it looks like. Can you see? That's what the wrong side was looking like. And on the right side, I'm just going to make sure that I fold all the rough edges inside, and I'll give this a top stitch. So with this, we won't be having any rough edges. Can you see that the collar is already making sense? So I went ahead to give it a top stitch, and this was what the collar looks like. So the next thing is just to make the collar look very well, you have to iron it together. Like when you are done with this shirt, you have to iron it in a way to make it look really, really, really nice. Okay, so the next thing to work on this shirt now is the sleeve. So I already cut out two pieces of my sleeve, and I folded the down parts, the edges, and I'm just going to be taking the measurements that I have around my shoulder, sorry, my armhole. So I'm going to be taking the measurements, and whatever I have there, I'm going to be using it to join my sleeve on each of the edges, just like you see me doing here. So I have about 8 inches, and I'm going to use it to join my sleeve all around. So I'm just marking my points, and I'll do the same thing on the other sleeve. So when I was done, remember that we are going to notch that sleeve at the center point. So when you want to notch your armhole area, you're not going to be notching the center part, because like that joining part is not where you're going to be using. You're going to be notching it from the come down area. Can you see? So that place is where you are going to place together with the sleeve notch. Yeah, so you are not going to be using the joint area but the notched area of the armhole, if you get that. So I'm just matching up my sleeve together with the armhole, and you will realize that your notched area is going to match with that come down area, like this, just the way I'm doing it. So go ahead and sew your sleeves together, and this is what the final result of the shirt looks like.